Hey guys, tonight we slip into a place most maps forgot. A world buried under miles of sand, where the air tastes like dust and sunlight turns everything white. You're standing at the edge of the Sahara, staring into a horizon that doesn't end. The wind hums through your ears like an old radio between stations. It's hot, silent, and strange. Out here, somewhere beneath all that shimmering emptiness, lies the story of a lost African city that traded salt like gold. And spoiler alert, you probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes in it without shade, water, and an alarming fondness for camel breath. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world everyone's tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sand crunches beneath your boots as you take your first cautious steps. The heat presses on you like an invisible weight. Somewhere beyond this golden blur once stood Taghaza, a settlement carved entirely from salt blocks, glinting like a mirage. But before you reach it, you have to cross a desert that has swallowed entire civilizations whole. The dunes shift like waves, and every gust seems to whisper names from a forgotten time. Ghana, Mali, Songhai. Empires that rose and fell because of a mineral you probably sprinkle on fries without thinking twice. The Sahara wasn't always the silent ocean it is now. Thousands of years ago, it had rivers, trees, even hippos wallowing lazily in water holes. Historians still argue whether climate change or human activity turned it into this vast desert. But what's certain is that people adapted. They built trade routes that connected the heart of Africa to the Mediterranean coast. Arteries that carried salt, gold, slaves, and stories. As the wind shifts, you spot the faint outline of a caravan on the horizon. Dozens of camels, each carrying slabs of salt strapped in neat layers. The animals sway rhythmically, their steps guided by men in indigo robes whose faces are mostly hidden. Except for eyes that seem to have seen everything. They're the Tuareg, the blue men of the desert. Their dyed garments leave a faint stain of indigo on their skin, as if the sky itself has claimed them. You fall in step beside them. The leader, his voice calm and cracked like dried clay, tells you that salt isn't just a spice here, it's survival. In ancient times, salt preserved meat, flavored dull grain, and replaced what sweat took away. Without it, you'd die within days under this blazing sun. In fact, in the medieval Sahel, salt was so valuable that traders sometimes exchanged it pound for pound with gold. Imagine that, a spice for a treasure. The Tuareg guide gestures to the sand ahead. "You see that shimmer?" he asks. "That's not water, that's salt. More valuable than life if you can carry it back." You squint, half expecting to see the ghost of an old salt city rising from the dunes. And maybe you do, in the way mirages play tricks on tired minds. A quirky tidbit. Some medieval travelers claimed that in these salt mines, workers ate nothing but millet and drank brine because even their bread tasted like salt. Others swore that you could tell a miner's hometown just by the way their lips cracked. Exaggerated? Probably. But that's how legends form out here, in the space between truth and survival. As night falls, you huddle by the caravan's small fire. The stars burst open across the black sky, brighter than you've ever seen them. The desert cools so fast it feels like the heat was just a fever dream. The guide passes you a small lump wrapped in leather. It's a piece of salt, carved roughly into the shape of a coin. "Taghaza," he says softly, "was built from this." You turn the chunk over in your hand. It glitters faintly, almost like marble. Once upon a time, thousands of men worked deep beneath the desert to pull this mineral from the earth. Their sweat salted the walls themselves. The air they breathed was thick with crystals. The noise of picks echoed endlessly, like heartbeats trapped in stone. Historians still argue whether the Taghaza mines were permanent settlements or temporary labor camps. Some records describe entire families living there, surrounded by walls made of salt, roofs made of palm trunks, and floors that melted when it rained, which admittedly wasn't often. Others say workers stayed only during the mining season, fleeing before the unbearable heat returned. You imagine it. Endless white blocks stacked into crude homes, their edges softened by the wind. The city gleaming like a hallucination. Camels kneeling in courtyards where even the dust tastes briny. Traders arriving from distant lands, Morocco, Ghana, even Egypt, to weigh slabs and haggle. Voices shouting over the wind. The smell of sweat and salt mingling until it's impossible to tell them apart. And yet, for all its shimmering wealth, Tagaza never felt like a paradise. It was more like a necessary punishment, somewhere you endured for fortune's sake. Ibn Battuta, the great Moroccan traveler, visited in the 1300s and called it the most wretched place on earth. He wasn't exaggerating. The water tasted foul, the air burned. The houses crumbled if you sneezed too hard. But still, people came. Because salt meant survival. You pick up a handful of sand and let it slip through your fingers. Each grain could be a piece of someone's history. A lost trade route, a buried well, a caravan that never made it back. You think about how strange it is that something as simple as salt could move armies, build cities, and spark wars. But then again, maybe it's not strange at all. Maybe humanity has always been ruled by what it can't live without. Somewhere far off, a camel bell jingles softly. The guide has already packed the fire, ready to move at dawn. You pull your cloak tighter and lie back, staring at the moon slicing through the clouds like a silver blade. Tomorrow, you'll reach the salt mines themselves. Tomorrow, you'll see what remains of the city that turned white stone into gold. For now, though, the desert hums like a lullaby. The wind strokes the dunes into smooth curves, erasing every footprint, including yours. You wake up to the sound of camels groaning like ancient doors. The desert dawn glows in faint shades of peach and gold, and your breath fogs slightly in the early chill. For a moment, it feels peaceful, until you remember that the day ahead involves walking across miles of shimmering emptiness toward a city made of salt. The Tuareg caravan is already moving, their silhouettes long and thin against the rising sun. You grab your water skin, lukewarm, faintly sandy, and follow. The desert changes character with each hour. By mid-morning, the light grows so intense it seems to bleach the sky itself. The horizon wobbles, and you can't tell what's real anymore. But slowly, something begins to take shape in the haze ahead. White walls, sharp edges, a mirage that refuses to fade. You blink, half expecting it to vanish, but it doesn't. The guide grins at your confusion. "Tagaza," he says simply. "You've reached the lost city." From a distance, it looks like a ghost made of glass. The walls glimmer, almost translucent, like someone carved a town from frost. Up close, though, you can see that every block is salt. Pure, solid slabs stacked like bricks. The houses lean awkwardly, as if tired of existing. The air smells faintly metallic, and the ground crunches underfoot. According to old chronicles, Tagaza was once home to hundreds of miners. They lived here year-round, hacking salt from the earth, carving it into long rectangular bars, and carrying them by camel to markets far beyond the desert's edge. You step into what used to be a courtyard. The walls are streaked with gray from centuries of wind erosion, and your tongue tastes salt just from breathing. The Tuareg leader explains that the mines lie just beyond the ruins, dark, narrow pits dug straight into the salt flats. You follow him there, each step sinking slightly into crusted earth. At first, it looks like snow, but when you kneel down and touch it, it's rough and cold, like sanded stone. You scrape a bit off with your fingernail. It flakes easily, glittering in the sunlight. One miner swings his pick, striking the wall with a metallic thunk. A cloud of salt dust rises, coating everything. The men work in silence, rhythmically, their faces covered with cloth to block the glare. The only sound is the echo of metal and the faint whistle of wind. The guide tells you that each worker earns their pay not in coins, but in salt slabs, which they later trade for grain, cloth, or livestock. "It's our gold," he says, shrugging. "You can't eat gold, but you can't live without salt." You glance at the horizon again, imagining the endless caravans that once left this place. Each camel carried up to 200 kilograms of salt. Multiply that by thousands of animals, and you realize how colossal this trade was. Whole kingdoms grew rich taxing the routes. Ghana, Mali, Songhai, every grain of salt that left these mines helped shape the map of West Africa. Here's a fun historical fact. In the 14th century, Tagaza was part of the Mali Empire under the legendary Mansa Musa, the same ruler famous for his gold-laden pilgrimage to Mecca. When he passed through Kaisas, historians still argue whether Tagaza was truly lost. Some say it simply declined when the Songhai Empire shifted trade routes westward. Others believe Moroccan invasions in the late 1500s turned it into rubble. A few even think the mines continued under different names, their location hidden to keep raiders away. Whatever the truth, the city's ghost lingers in the sand, half remembered and half imagined. You wander to the edge of the mine. The moon rises, silver and sharp, reflecting faintly off the salt. You pick up another chunk, smooth, heavy, beautiful in its simplicity. Somewhere hundreds of miles away, merchants once traded pieces like this for gold dust or cloth. They'd balance it on scales, haggle fiercely, and call it even. It's strange, you think, how something so ordinary can become precious when the world depends on it. A breeze kicks up, sending a fine mist of salt across your face. You taste it instinctively. It's pure, cold, and strangely comforting. Maybe it's the mineral tang of history itself, dissolving slowly on your tongue. That night, you dream of white walls gleaming under starlight. You see figures moving between them, miners, traders, wanderers like yourself, carrying slabs that glimmer like moonlit ice. Somewhere in the distance, a drum beats faintly, and the desert hums with the rhythm of trade, faith, and survival. When you wake, the city is quiet again. Only the wind moves, reshaping the dunes one grain at a time. The guide calls out. It's time to join the next caravan. The salt must move, always. The desert doesn't keep still for long. You take one last look at Tagaza, the city that refused to disappear entirely. Its walls sparkle faintly in the sun, as if winking goodbye. Then, with your cloak pulled tight and your water skin slung across your shoulder, you step back onto the ancient trail, the same path millions of feet once wore into the earth. Ahead lies the next story, carried on camel humps and whispered through centuries. The caravan sets out just after dawn, when the horizon is still bruised purple and the heat hasn't yet started its daily assault. You trudge behind the line of camels, their feet pressing deep, deliberate ovals into the sand. Bells jingle lazily around their necks. Every few minutes, one of them grumbles like it's filing a formal complaint about the trip, which honestly, you sympathize with. Ahead stretches the trade route that once linked Tagaza's salt mines to the faraway markets of the Mali Empire. It's not a road so much as an agreement between generations. Walk this way, and you'll find profit. You picture hundreds of caravans over the centuries, weaving like patient rivers across the dunes. Each camel carried salt north and gold south, their twin flows sustaining kingdoms that otherwise would have been just dust. The Tuareg guide walks beside you, staff in hand. 2 months, he says, nodding toward the endless horizon. That's how long it took the old caravans to reach Timbuktu. 2 months of sun, wind, and hope. You do a quick mental check of your snack supply and decide you wouldn't have lasted 2 days. Around midday, the desert starts to shimmer with mirages. You see flickers of green, water that doesn't exist, trees that vanish when you blink. The guide laughs at your puzzled expression. That's the desert's sense of humor, he says. It likes to lie. Somewhere in the distance, the faint shape of another caravan moves like a reflection, though you can't tell if it's real or memory. As the day stretches on, the guide tells stories. One, about how a single block of salt could buy an ounce of gold. Another, about how the salt from Tagaza was stacked like miniature fortresses in market squares. Each slab was stamped with marks of its origin, as if to prove its pedigree, an early form of branding, centuries before logos existed. A mainstream historical fact. Records from Arab chroniclers describe these trans-Saharan routes as the arteries of African wealth. The Ghana Empire, and later Mali, thrived because of them. Towns like Awalata, Timbuktu, and Gao sprang up as trade stations where merchants exchanged not only goods but ideas. Mathematics, astronomy, Islam, even architecture. Salt, gold, and knowledge all rode the same camels. You pass the bleached bones of an old caravan camp, half-buried fire pits, broken pottery, a rusted knife handle. The Tuareg gesture for silence. The desert, they say, listens closely here. These dunes remember everything, he murmurs. They just don't tell it all at once. You stand still for a moment, listening. The wind sighs softly through the sand ridges, like breath caught between words. By evening, you reach a cluster of low tents, an oasis of sorts. The air smells faintly of acacia smoke, and the camels finally kneel with audible relief. Water skins are passed around sparingly. You taste the water. It's warm and bitter, but it might as well be nectar. One of the traders offers you dried dates. You bite in and almost laugh. They're gritty with sand. Desert seasoning, he jokes. Crunchy but natural. Around the fire, the men begin to sing softly. The rhythm is hypnotic, steady, repetitive, almost like the creaking of camel saddles. The song tells of gold flowing from the forest kingdoms in the south and salt rising from the northern mines. Salt for life, gold for the soul, one lyric says. You can almost imagine the goods themselves whispering their stories through the night. I came from the deep earth, and now I travel among stars. There's a quirky tidbit the traders share between laughs, that some camels, after years of hauling salt, develop an instinct to walk the route without guidance. They know where to rest, where the air feels cooler, where old wells hide. When one dies on the journey, its body is often left where it falls, and other caravans recognize the bones like landmarks. That's Ahmed's camel, someone might say casually, still pointing the way. Historians still argue whether these routes were controlled by central governments or more fluid networks of tribal alliances. Some say the Mali emperors had direct control over caravans and taxed every slab that crossed their borders. Others believe the traders operated semi-independently, protected by Tuareg clans who knew the desert's moods better than any empire ever could. Whatever the truth, the routes endured longer than most kingdoms did. After dinner, you lie on your back, staring at the Milky Way smeared across the sky like spilled salt. The desert is quiet except for the occasional grunt of a sleeping camel. You can't help but think about all the feet that have walked this same sand. Miners, slaves, merchants, pilgrims. Each left a story behind, but the wind doesn't keep archives. It erases everything equally, like a librarian with no favorites. Your mind drifts to the golden cities on the other end of this trade, places you've only heard about in travelers' tales. Timbuktu, where scholars debated the stars by candlelight. Gao, where kings weighed gold dust in polished gourds. And Niani, the old capital of Mali, where Mansa Musa ruled with a hand both generous and unshakable. You can almost smell the incense and hear the distant hum of markets overflowing with spices, fabrics, and music. The fire crackles low. The Tuareg men tell one last story before sleep, a superstition about the sand jinn, spirits said to follow the caravans. They protect the honest and mislead the greedy, twisting their paths so they circle back to where they started. You laugh softly, but part of you glances nervously at the dunes anyway. The desert feels alive tonight, listening. When dawn comes again, the wind has changed direction. The dunes look unfamiliar, rearranged overnight. The guide taps his staff into the sand, frowning slightly. The desert rewrote itself, he mutters, but it's fine. We'll find the way. He ties a fresh indigo cloth across his face and signals the camels to rise. You follow, your footprints disappearing almost instantly behind you. Somewhere far ahead lies the empire that turned this salt into power. The thought gives you a shiver that has nothing to do with the chill morning air. Because if salt was worth gold here, what did gold itself mean? You press on through the rising heat, the sun climbing like a coin tossed too high into the sky. The sand glitters under it, every grain, every ripple, until the desert looks like it's made of molten metal. And in a way, maybe it is. After all, This is the road where wealth itself was born, carried on the backs of beasts, measured in salt and sweat. By the third week of your journey, the desert begins to thin. Not in sand, there's still far too much of that, but in its silence. The air carries faint traces of human life again. Smoke from distant fires, the echo of drums at night, and the thin, rhythmic cries of caravan bells that aren't your own. The Tuareg guide smiles knowingly. "We are nearing the lifeline," he says, "the place where salt becomes empire." That lifeline is the Niger River, a long, patient serpent of water looping through West Africa. For centuries, it's been the artery that fed entire civilizations. You catch your first glimpse of it just before dusk, its silver curve shimmering through acacia trees. After days of swallowing dust, the sight of running water feels like a miracle. You almost want to cheer. When you reach its banks, the world changes. The smell of wet earth replaces the desert's dryness. At a riverside market, you watch a ritual of exchange that's been practiced for centuries. One trader places a block of salt on the ground and steps back. Another approaches, sets down a small pile of gold dust, and retreats. No words are exchanged. Each man examines the other's offer, and if satisfied, the deal is silently sealed. It's called dumb barter, a method once used between Arab traders and local miners when they didn't share a language or didn't trust each other. You can almost hear the quiet tension in every transaction. As you stroll through the bustling market, you catch scents of fried millet cakes, shea butter, and something smoky that might be roasted locusts. You decide not to confirm. Laughter rolls through the air. Children chase each other between traders shouting over prices. You realize you've left the hush of the desert behind and stepped into a living heartbeat. The guide introduces you to a griot, a traditional storyteller draped in a faded crimson robe. His voice is deep and musical, carrying easily above the din. He recites tales of kings who measured wealth not in gold, but in the number of caravans that left Tagaza each season. "Salt made thrones," he declares, eyes gleaming. "Without it, gold would have stayed buried in the dark." There's a quirky tidbit the griot shares with a sly grin. Some rulers were rumored to store salt slabs in their royal treasuries stacked beside gold bars. During famine years, a single slab could feed a family for months, not by eating it directly, but by trading it for food. Salt was edible currency, immune to rust and inflation. "You could say," he chuckles, "it was the first blockchain, each slab traceable to its mine, and everyone trusted it." Historians still argue whether Mali's control over the salt trade was absolute or merely symbolic. Some suggest local chiefs managed the day-to-day business, collecting taxes in the emperor's name. Others think the central government held strict monopolies, sending military escorts to guard caravans. The truth, as always, likely lies somewhere in the shifting dunes between power and pragmatism. You sit by the riverbank that evening, watching the sunset turn everything molten gold. The sky ripples with soft oranges and purples. The water mirrors it perfectly, as if the world itself were made of melted treasure. The Tuareg guide joins you quietly. "The desert gives salt," he says. "The river gives life. The gold comes from far south. Together, they make kings." You nod, thinking about how entire civilizations once hinged on this delicate triangle. Tagaza, the trade routes, and the empire's heart. Each depended on the other. Remove one, and the rest would crumble like, well, a house made of salt. You laugh softly at your own thought, but the humor fades as the evening deepens. Across the river, drums begin to beat. Slow, deliberate, ceremonial. Perhaps a wedding. Perhaps a tribute to the ancestors who first mapped these trade routes by starlight. You close your eyes and imagine those ancient caravans moving again in the dark, guided only by constellations and instinct. Somewhere in the night, you hear the griot's voice again, distant but clear. Gold is heavy, salt is pure, but stories, they are the only thing that never melt. You watch the moon rise, pale and wide over the river. The water shimmers under it like a moving sheet of silver. You can feel the pulse of history here, the steady rhythm of trade, empire, and memory. When you finally drift to sleep, it's with the sound of waves lapping the shore and the faint echo of laughter carried on the wind. Tomorrow, the caravan will turn east, following the old Songhai routes. But tonight, under this vast, starlit empire of salt and gold, you finally understand how something as simple as a mineral could sustain not just bodies, but entire worlds. You leave the river behind, its silver gleam shrinking to a ribbon in the distance. The air grows drier again, flatter, as if the world is slowly forgetting what water feels like. The Tuareg guide taps his staff against the sand and nods toward the horizon. "We go east now," he says, "to Gao, to the Songhai." You've heard the name whispered by traders around the fires. Songhai, the empire that rose from Mali's shadow and claimed the desert roots for itself. It's said that when the Mali kings grew fat on gold and faith, the Songhai waited, patient as a crocodile in the shallows. And when the time came, they struck. The journey takes days. You cross scrublands where the air hums with insects, then dusty plains where the wind never rests. Occasionally, you pass crumbling outposts, remnants of old Mali watchtowers, their foundations buried in sand. Each one feels like a ghost keeping guard over vanished wealth. At last, you see Gao. It rises from the banks of the Niger like an illusion made of clay and sunlight. Tall mud brick towers jut upward, their smooth sides punctured with wooden scaffolding beams that jut out like ribs. The city hums with movement, traders shouting, donkeys braying, children laughing, the clang of blacksmiths shaping iron tools. After the emptiness of the desert, it feels overwhelming, like stepping into color after weeks of monochrome. The guide leads you through the market square where salt from Tagaza gleams white against the red dust. Slabs are stacked neatly in pyramids, each one stamped with marks from the mines. Beside them, merchants display baskets of gold dust, ivory carvings, and fine indigo cloth. The smells of smoke, sweat, and spice mix into something oddly intoxicating. A merchant waves you over, holding up a slab of salt as if it's a trophy. "From Tagaza," he boasts, "straight from the earth's mouth." You run your fingers across it. It's rough, cool, and strangely heavy, like holding frozen sunlight. You can almost hear the desert wind trapped inside. Here in Gao, salt isn't just a trade good. It's the currency that keeps the Songhai Empire alive. Caravans from the north bring it in by the thousands, while gold and slaves flow out toward the Mediterranean. You can see the scale of it. Long trains of camels arriving daily, their loads being weighed, taxed, and stamped before continuing their journey. The efficiency is almost modern. A mainstream historical fact. By the 15th century, Gao had become one of Africa's greatest trading cities, ruled by the Songhai kings who succeeded Mali. Under Askia Muhammad, the empire expanded from the Atlantic coast to the edge of modern-day Nigeria. Its armies patrolled the desert routes, ensuring no caravan strayed or escaped taxation. Wealth from Tagaza and other salt centers poured through Gao, funding schools, mosques, and monuments. You walk through the city's heart toward the Grand Mosque, its earthen minaret rising like a spear against the sky. Inside, the air is cool and still. Rows of men kneel in prayer, their robes forming a sea of white and blue. You can feel the quiet reverence that salt wealth helped build, how commerce and faith intertwined so seamlessly that one could not exist without the other. A local imam greets you warmly and offers tea. His voice is soft, calm, but carries the authority of someone used to being listened to. "Salt," he says, pouring steaming amber liquid into your cup, "is a test from God. It humbles kings and sustains beggars. It reminds us that value is not always glittering." He smiles faintly, as though he's said this many times before. The tea is strong and sweet, a perfect antidote to desert fatigue. You sip, nodding thoughtfully, pretending you've had profound revelations about humility, though mostly you're thinking, "I could drink 20 more of these." There's a quirky tidbit the imam shares. In some parts of the empire, salt was believed to ward off evil spirits. Families would bury small chunks near their doors or dissolve it in water and sprinkle it around their homes. Even kings carried pouches of salt in their robes, not for trade, but for protection. You see, he adds, winking, not everything valuable needs a price. You wander through Gao's narrow alleys later that day, trailing your hand along cool mud walls. The air hums with conversation. Arabic, Songhai, Hausa, all blending into a single living rhythm. In one courtyard, scribes sit cross-legged, copying texts onto parchment. In another, musicians pluck lutes made of calabash gourds, their melodies drifting lazily through the heat. Historians still argue whether Gao's prosperity truly outshone Timbuktu's, or whether the two cities simply reflected different facets of the same brilliance. Timbuktu became the intellectual jewel of the desert, Gao its economic engine. But both owed their splendor to the same foundation, salt and gold, endlessly moving, endlessly traded. That evening, you climb a low rooftop and watch the sun set over the river. The sky bleeds red and violet, and for a brief moment, the entire city glows as if carved from fire. You think about how many empires have burned just as brightly, only to fade into dust. Maybe that's the desert's greatest trick, not its mirages, but its patience. It waits long enough to outlast everything. The Tuareg guide sits beside you, chewing dates thoughtfully. Songhai thinks it owns the desert, he says, but the desert owns everyone, even kings. You nod, watching a caravan enter the city gates below. Camels swaying, bells jingling, men shouting orders. It's a scene that could have played out 1,000 years ago, or that word, reforms, ripples through the crowd like wind through tall grass. You soon learn what it means. Askia Muhammad isn't just a warrior king. He's a bureaucratic genius with a love for order. He reorganizes trade routes, standardizes taxes, and appoints governors who answer directly to him. Gold, salt, and slaves are no longer traded by chance but by decree. The empire becomes a machine, each cog turning perfectly, until, of course, it doesn't. As you stroll through Gao in the following days, you notice the changes. New marketplaces rise from the dust, broad roads cut through the maze of alleys, and scribes march everywhere with ledgers and ink pots. Even the tax collectors seem oddly cheerful, though maybe it's just the heat stroke talking. Here's a mainstream historical fact to anchor you. Askia Muhammad ruled from 1493 to 1528, after seizing the throne from Sunni Ali's son. His reign marked the golden age of the Songhai Empire, during which Timbuktu and Gao became global centers of trade and scholarship. His pilgrimage to Mecca cemented his legitimacy and brought back not just faith, but administrative ideas that reshaped West Africa's economy. But amid all this wealth and order, you start hearing strange stories whispered in the shade. Rumors about the salt mines of Tagaza. Workers there, they say, are treated worse than beasts, living in pits of blinding white heat, their only shelter made from blocks of the very salt they dig. Each man is paid in slabs instead of coin, doomed to eat, sleep, and die surrounded by his wages. You picture it, salt glinting in their beards, eyes burning from glare, hands cracked like desert rock. And suddenly, the white gold that gleamed so beautifully in Gao's markets feels a little less pure. A quirky tidbit floats your way from a merchant who seems half delirious with sun. The miners at Tagaza supposedly season their food with dust scraped from their own walls. It's salt, he says, shrugging. Everything is salt. You try not to laugh. It sounds absurd, but then again, what choice did they have? Historians still argue whether those conditions were exaggerated by later writers or genuinely that grim. Some claim Tagaza's reputation as a city of bones was crafted by travelers trying to shock their readers. Others believe the horror was real, that Tagaza was less a town and more a prison under the open sky. Either way, the image sticks with you. That evening, you sit near the docks where boats loaded with goods glide silently across the Niger. The water shimmers under the sunset, turning molten gold. It's easy to forget how harsh life can be beyond this beauty. Your guide joins you, chewing on something that looks suspiciously like salted meat. The king's men control every grain now, he says. Gold for salt. Salt for power, power for the king, he smirks. And us? We're just the camels carrying it. You can't help but laugh. It's too perfect a metaphor. Doesn't that make him the biggest camel of all? You joke. The guide throws his head back and laughs so loudly a few fishermen glance your way, shaking their heads. Later that night, you wander into a courtyard where scholars debate under lantern light. They argue about everything. Whether salt was created before or after the oceans, whether the prophet's sweat could have turned the desert fertile, whether spirits dwell in dunes. It's mesmerizing, this mix of mysticism and logic, of faith and economy. One scholar waves his hand dismissively at the others. You fools, he declares. The salt isn't the treasure, the root is. You nod, silently agreeing, because really it's not the thing itself that matters. It's the movement, the connection between people, the rhythm of trade that never sleeps. You learn that caravans can take up to 3 months to reach Taghaza from Gao, and sometimes another 3 to return. Each journey risks storms, raids, and thirst. To lose your way is to vanish without a trace. Yet still, men set out year after year because the salt must move. Always the salt. As you drift to sleep that night on a rooftop mat, the city murmuring below, you think of those miners deep in their glittering graves of salt. You imagine them chipping away at the walls, laughing, cursing, dreaming of the gold they'll never see. You picture the caravans marching across the dunes, the stars guiding their steps, the wind whispering through the sand like an old song. And somewhere in that vast silence, you sense how fragile it all is. An empire built on salt is only one rainstorm away from ruin. The thought should worry you, but instead it feels oddly soothing. Because maybe that's what all of history is. Grains of salt, each story dissolving slowly into the next, leaving only a faint trace of flavor behind. Morning returns with a soft golden haze over Gao. You wake to the sound of merchants shouting in half a dozen languages, camels groaning, and somewhere in the distance, a drummer keeping time for porters hauling crates of salt down to the docks. The city smells like river mud, firewood, and the faint metallic tang of coin. Your Tuareg guide greets you with a grin and a piece of dried mango, his idea of breakfast luxury. We go west today, he says. The salt flows that way now. The empire stretches its arms, and every hand must touch gold. You follow him down a winding street where scribes record the movements of caravans. They dip reed pens into ink and scratch tallies onto parchment. Names, loads, taxes. Every slab of salt, every bag of gold dust, every living camel is logged with near-religious precision. Bureaucracy, you realize, is the invisible caravan that never sleeps. Under Askia Muhammad, the empire hums like a machine. Tax collectors, judges, scribes, and couriers all answer to a hierarchy that stretches from Gao to Timbuktu, from the dunes of Taghaza to the fertile lands near the Atlantic. And though the emperor's reforms bring prosperity, they also tighten the leash. Traders whisper about the weight of paperwork, the endless inspections, the new rules for who can sell what and where. A mainstream historical fact drifts through your thoughts. During Askia's reign, the Songhai government established a sophisticated bureaucracy with governors, known as Farin, and provincial councils. His administration relied heavily on Islamic scholars to codify trade laws and ensure fair taxation. At least, fair for those who could afford it. You make your way to Timbuktu again, following the curve of the river, and the city greets you like an old friend, sun-bleached and wise. This time, though, you notice something different. The markets are even busier. The air hums with voices quoting prices faster than you can blink. You catch snippets of trade in gold, ivory, books, and, less comfortably, people. Slavery, though not unusual for the era, unsettles you every time you see it. Men and women from across the Sahel, captured in raids or sold for debt, are paraded alongside the salt slabs and textiles. The merchants treat it like just another transaction, one commodity among many. Your guide senses your discomfort and shrugs. In this world, he says quietly, Freedom is just another thing that can be bought. Then with a smirk, he adds, "Lucky for you, you're too strange to sell." You chuckle, though the joke leaves a bitter taste. The empire's prosperity rests not only on gold and salt, but on the backs of countless laborers. Miners in Taghaza, porters in Gao, scribes in Timbuktu, and captives in the markets. It's a web of exchange that both dazzles and disturbs. A quirky tidbit surfaces as you pass a group of scholars near Sankore. One is reciting a poem, an ode to salt, of all things. You pause to listen. The poet compares it to the laughter of the earth, claiming that every grain carries a fragment of the divine breath that shaped the world. His audience claps politely, though one man whispers, "He's only saying that because he invested in the mines." You stifle a laugh. Even in the 1500s, marketing spin was alive and well. That night, a merchant invites you to a feast in his courtyard. The food is rich. Roasted lamb with dates, millet porridge, and spiced tea so sweet it could glue your eyelids shut. Between bites, the talk turns to rumors of unrest in the far west, smaller kingdoms grumbling under Songhai's taxes, caravan routes being harassed by bandits who claim to fight for freedom. The merchant waves it off. "Every emperor hears ghosts before it sleeps," he says. "Ours is still wide awake." Historians still argue whether Songhai truly achieved stability under Askia Muhammad, or whether the cracks were already forming beneath its glittering surface. Some records describe decades of harmony and economic boom. Others hint at corruption, power struggles, and resentment among conquered tribes. Like all great powers, the truth probably lies somewhere between glory and gossip. You excuse yourself after the meal and step outside. The streets are quieter now. The moon hangs over the Niger, mirrored perfectly in the water's black glass. A fisherman hums as he mends his nets, and you wonder if he ever thinks about the salt that built this world. The trade that feeds him, taxes him, and maybe someday will bury him too. Your guide appears from the shadows, holding 2 cups of tea. "You see," he says, handing you one, "all this, gold, salt, kings, it's just the desert pretending to be civilized." You sip in silence, watching the reflection of. "News from the north," your Tuareg guide says, leaning against a post. "Morocco is moving." At first, you think he's joking. Morocco? That's across the desert, past the dunes, beyond the horizon. What could a distant sultan want with the heart of the Songhai Empire? But the whispers spread like wildfire. Soldiers in strange armor have been seen at the edge of the Sahara. They carry muskets, fire sticks, and ride under banners embroidered with silver thread. You can almost hear history shift under your feet. As you sit with a group of traders by the riverbank, one of them, a wiry old man with a missing tooth, leans in and says, "The Sultan of Morocco wants the salt." He taps his temple. "Not the mines, no, the trade. He wants to own the road between the earth and the sea." A mainstream historical fact. In the late 16th century, Sultan Ahmad al-Mansur of Morocco sent a massive invasion force across the Sahara. In 1591, his troops, armed with firearms, clashed with the Songhai army at the Battle of Tondibi near Gao. Despite their numerical superiority, the Songhai soldiers were defeated. The roar of gunpowder shattered centuries of balance built on salt and gold. You can almost imagine it. The thunder of muskets echoing across the dunes, camels bolting in terror, warriors blinking in disbelief as the world changes in a single volley. But you're not there yet. Right now, Timbuktu is still standing proud, and life goes on as if nothing could possibly shake it. You walk through the market where salt still gleams in white slabs, where women sell bundles of dried fish, and where storytellers chant epics of past kings who never imagined their empires could die. You pass a scribe copying a text onto parchment, a treatise on commerce and faith. He looks up and smiles faintly. "Every number is a prayer," he says, "and every prayer needs balance." You nod, not realizing how prophetic his words will soon become. A quirky tidbit reaches you from a caravan captain. Supposedly, the Moroccans are using camels that wear tiny leather sandals to protect their hooves from the salt flats. You laugh, imagining an army of camels in footwear, like a medieval fashion show marching toward conquest. The captain swears it's true. though he admits he's never actually seen it. Still, he says, they say the animals march quieter that way, like ghosts. Historians still argue whether the Moroccan invasion was truly about salt or simply greed for Songhai's immense gold trade. Some believe Sultan Ahmad al-Mansur sought to control trans-Saharan commerce entirely, while others suggest it was pride, an attempt to prove Morocco's might after its victories against Portugal. Whatever the reason, the result would echo across centuries. For now, though, life in Timbuktu continues with a defiant sort of grace. You find yourself spending more time in the libraries, thumbing through manuscripts that smell of dust and ink. The scholars speak of balance and destiny, their voices calm, as though books can hold back armies. Knowledge, one tells you, is a fortress no sword can breach. You hope he's right. That night, you climb to the top of Sankore's minaret and look out over the sleeping city. The stars sprawl above you, brilliant and endless. Somewhere to the north, beyond all that shimmering emptiness, soldiers are loading muskets, oiling blades, and whispering prayers of their own. You feel the quiet weight of inevitability. The same way you can sense a storm before it arrives, you can feel history winding up for a blow. Your guide joins you, carrying a small clay bowl of water. He dips his finger in and flicks droplets into the air. For luck, he says. The desert doesn't care, but maybe the sky listens. You smile faintly. Do you think the Songhai can win? He shrugs. The desert doesn't let anyone win. It just watches. His words linger long after you descend from the tower. In the distance, thunder growls, but it's not from clouds. It's from the north. A few days later, new rumors slither through the market like snakes. Caravans attacked, villages burned, soldiers seen near Gao. Merchants begin hiding their gold, and the price of salt doubles overnight. You can feel the panic rippling through the city like a heartbeat speeding up. You help your guide load supplies onto a camel, though you're not quite sure where you're going. Away, probably. Far enough to watch without being swallowed. As the first winds of war reach Timbuktu, the air fills with dust, and the horizon glows an unnatural red. It's beautiful in a terrible way, like fire viewed through silk. You realize this is how empires die, not all at once, but grain by grain, trade by trade, until even salt loses its taste. That night, before you leave, you stop by the edge of the river one last time. You scoop a handful of water, sprinkle a pinch of salt into it, and watch it dissolve. The surface shimmers, then smooths back into calm. You whisper, everything changes. And for a moment, you swear the water whispers back. The dunes look different now. You've crossed them before. Golden waves rolling endlessly under a wide, merciless sky. But something in the air has shifted. The horizon feels heavier, like it's carrying a secret it doesn't want to tell. Your Tuareg guide says little as you travel. His blue veil hides everything but his eyes, and even those seem shadowed by worry. The caravans that once sang with the clinking of salt blocks now march in silence. Traders glance nervously behind them, muttering about gunfire in the north. The Moroccan army has crossed the Sahara, they say. Thousands of men armed with thunder and flame, moving like a mirage that kills. When you reach Gao again, the city looks wounded. Its once busy markets are half empty, the river eerily quiet. The smell of smoke lingers in the air. Children peer from doorways, their eyes wide. The great empire that once traded salt for gold now trades rumors for fear. You walk through the silent square where salt once gleamed in neat white stacks. Now, a few broken slabs lie scattered, kicked aside like debris. The Tuareg guide picks one up, studies it, and shakes his head. Even salt can rot, he murmurs. A mainstream historical fact. The Moroccan invasion culminated in the Battle of Tondibi in 1591. The Songhai army, tens of thousands strong, armed with spears, bows, and cavalry, faced a Moroccan force of about 4,000 men. Despite being outnumbered, the Moroccans wielded muskets and cannons, technologies that shattered traditional warfare. The Songhai warriors, unaccustomed to the deafening roar of gunfire scattered in confusion. Gao fell soon after. You imagine it. The Songhai soldiers charging bravely across open desert, banners snapping in the wind, only to be met with a sound they'd never heard before. The sky itself splitting with fire, horses screaming, sand exploding, men falling without understanding why. The desert swallowing their cries like a hungry god. Your guide tells you he heard of a strange tactic at Tondibi. The Songhai had supposedly herded cattle ahead of them, hoping to break the enemy line. But when the first cannon fired, the terrified animals turned and trampled their own army instead. Whether it's true or not, it feels cruelly poetic. The empire crushed by the very beasts it tried to control. That evening, you find shelter in a crumbling courtyard near the river. A few survivors sit around a small fire, their faces hollow with exhaustion. One man, a former salt merchant, still carries a pouch tied at his belt. Inside, he keeps a single fragment of salt. For luck, he says, though he doesn't sound like he believes it. A quirky tidbit comes from him between sips of weak tea. During the chaos, some traders supposedly tried to use salt slabs as shields. Didn't work, he adds dryly, but at least they died well seasoned. You laugh softly, half out of disbelief, half because humor is the only thing left when everything else is gone. Historians still argue whether the Moroccan victory truly destroyed Songhai or merely fractured it. Some claim remnants of the empire survived along the river, led by exiled nobles who tried to rebuild. Others believe the empire dissolved completely, its heart scattered like sand in the wind. What's certain is that trade never stopped, it just changed hands. As you wander through the ruins of Gao's market, you see Moroccan soldiers moving cautiously, their muskets slung across their backs. They look uneasy, out of place. Men built for mountains now standing knee-deep in history they don't understand. A captain orders a patrol in Arabic, his words crisp and unfamiliar. You wonder if he knows what this city once meant, or if to him, it's just another prize on a map. You pass a makeshift post where scribes record inventories for the new overlords. Salt, gold, ivory, slaves, it all continues, just under different management. You can't help but feel a dull ache watching them write, the same way one might feel watching someone repaint a tomb. At dusk, you climb the remnants of the mosque's outer wall and look toward the river. The sky glows red, then fades to indigo. You imagine Askia Muhammad's ghost walking among the ruins, his footsteps silent on the cracked earth. Maybe he's still counting his caravans, still whispering orders to a vanished army. Your guide joins you, holding out a skin of water. "It's all gone," he says quietly. You shake your head. "No, the trade's still here, the salt's still in the grooves." The road west feels different this time. The air carries the scent of smoke, the faint metallic tang of gunpowder. You pass half-buried wagons, their cargo spilled across the sand. Broken pottery, shredded cloth, chunks of salt dissolving into white dust. Every few miles you find footprints that fade into nothing. The Tuareg hums softly as he walks, an old desert tune. "We've seen this before," he says. "Empires rise, empires fall, the dunes don't care. The salt just waits." He's right, of course. The Songhai Empire has crumbled, but the desert endures. The trade routes are scarred but not dead. Somewhere, caravans still move, merchants still haggle, and miners still cut salt from the earth as if nothing has changed. When you finally reach Timbuktu, the city looks weary but alive. Its mud walls stand firm, though cracked with age. The marketplace is smaller now, quieter. The scholars of Sankore still teach, but their numbers have dwindled. Many fled north when the Moroccan soldiers arrived. Those who remain keep their voices low, their faith tucked between the pages of their books. A mainstream historical fact anchors this moment. After the Moroccan conquest of 1591, Timbuktu became a shadow of its former self. The invaders installed puppet rulers and taxed trade heavily. Many scholars were imprisoned or exiled, and manuscripts that once filled libraries vanished into secret caches. Yet in quiet defiance, learning continued in whispers and candlelight. You walk through the empty courtyards where students once debated theology and astronomy. The echo of their voices still lingers in the air like a faint aftertaste. One old teacher, stooped and nearly blind, tells you that salt is still traded here, but only in small amounts now. The roads are dangerous, he sighs. The caravans are fewer, and the greed greater. A quirky tidbit slips out as he laughs weakly. The Moroccans tried to tax the sand itself, you know. They measured everything that moved, including the wind. Didn't work. He chuckles, then coughs, the sound dry as the dunes. Even the desert refused to pay. Outside, the market creaks back to life. Traders whisper prices over baskets of millet and piles of cloth. A woman sells what she claims is blessed salt, small crystals wrapped in cloth, said to protect travelers from harm. You buy one out of curiosity. It feels ordinary, but she looks at you with such conviction that you almost believe her. Historians still argue whether Timbuktu's fall marked the true end of the Salt Empire, or whether the trade simply shifted south and east. Some claim smaller towns like Taudeni and Arawane carried on the legacy, their miners cutting slabs for centuries more. Others insist that the spirit of the trade, the faith in endurance and exchange, never truly died. That night, you sit by the river again, watching the water glow under the moonlight. A few boats drift lazily, their lanterns bobbing like fireflies. You dip your hand in the cool current and taste it. Faintly bitter, faintly alive. Your guide joins you, crouching beside the water. "You've seen the end of kings," he says quietly. "Do you still think the salt is worth it?" You think for a long time before answering. Maybe not for the kings, but for the people who walk, dig, and trade. Maybe it still is. He nods slowly. That's the trick of it. Salt doesn't care who rules. It only wants to be carried. You both sit in silence for a while. The night insects hum. Somewhere in the distance, a jackal cries, its voice thin against the endless dark. You realize how fragile everything is, how easily power slips through fingers, how history dissolves like salt in water. Before you sleep, the old teacher finds you again. He presses a scrap of parchment into your hand, a small map, drawn in careful lines. "If you ever go farther west," he whispers, "follow the old road. They say there's another city buried under the dunes. Some call it the twin of Timbuktu." You study the faint ink lines by the light of your small lamp. The map leads deeper into the desert, past known routes, toward a place marked only by a tiny symbol, 2 circles intertwined. You glance at the Tuareg guide. "You ever heard of it?" He smiles faintly. "Many times. Never found it." He throws sand over the fire and lies down, muttering, "But if it's real, maybe that's where the salt hides its soul." You lie awake for a long time, staring up at the stars. The map rests under your hand, warm from the fading fire. Somewhere out there, maybe beyond all reason, lies another city, one the desert forgot to erase. The wind sighs softly, tugging at the edge of the parchment, and you could almost swear it's whispering a direction. By dawn, you're already walking again. The desert seems almost sentient this morning, watchful, humming, full of memory. Each dune looks familiar, yet slightly rearranged, as though the wind has been rewriting the past overnight. Your guide leads with steady confidence, the small map tucked in your bag rustling faintly with every step. It isn't long before you begin to notice signs of conflict. The ground is littered with broken pottery, bent spearheads, fragments of camel harnesses. You pass a charred skeleton of a caravan, burned wagons, ash-filled footprints. Someone fought here not long ago. The wars over white gold weren't fought with ideals or grand speeches. They were fought with dust in people's eyes and thirst in their throats. After the Moroccan invasion of 1591 shattered the Songhai Empire, control of the Sahara's salt routes became a ruthless free-for-all. The Moroccans claimed ownership, but the desert tribes refused to bow. The Tuareg raided caravans. Local militias ambushed tax collectors. The once smooth veins of trade turned jagged and bloody. Your guide shakes his head at a collapsed tent half buried in the sand. "Everyone wanted the salt," he murmurs, "but no one wanted the work." You trudge in silence, feeling the irony sting. Salt, the simplest mineral, the thing you sprinkle on fries without thinking, once drove men to madness. It's almost funny. Almost. By midday, the heat is a wall pressing against you. The sand burns through your sandals, and even the camels seem to sigh. When you finally find shade beneath a jagged outcrop, you share a few drops of lukewarm water and a pinch of precious salt. Your guide sprinkles it on his tongue like a ritual. "Still the taste of life," he says. That phrase feels ancient, older than the empires themselves. You remember how, in medieval times, salt wasn't just a condiment, it was a salary. That word, in fact, comes from salarium, the Roman allowance given to soldiers for buying salt. By the 16th century, the Sahara had turned that same mineral into currency again. The more things changed, the more they dissolved into the same pattern: survival, trade, greed. A mainstream historical fact lingers like a mirage. Moroccan soldiers occupied the salt mines at Tagaza for decades, using enslaved laborers to mine and transport slabs northward. The salt caravans continued, but the wealth flowed to Fez and Marrakesh instead of Timbuktu. Control over salt meant control over life, and that power was never shared lightly. You see the echoes of that in the ruins around you. Scattered skeletons of old outposts dot the horizon, some built from salt, others from mud. You can almost picture soldiers arguing over their rations, merchants bribing guards, smugglers sneaking under moonlight. A quirky tidbit your guide shares between sips of tea. They say one general used to stamp his seal directly into blocks of salt before shipping them north. Said it kept the spirits from stealing the load. When it rained, the spirits had the last laugh. He grins, showing sand-stained teeth. The humor is bleak, but it fits. Even jokes here seem carved from salt, dry, necessary, and a little bitter. Historians still argue whether Morocco's conquest truly ended the trans-Saharan trade or merely shifted its power base. Some evidence suggests caravans continued well into the 18th century, though smaller and more dangerous. Others think the Atlantic trade routes, opened by Portuguese and Spanish ships, drained the desert's lifeblood faster than any sword ever could. You push onward, following what remains of the old caravan path. The dunes ripple like waves, the sun a relentless drumbeat. By late afternoon, you reach a ravine where the ground sparkles faintly. Your guide kneels, scooping up handfuls of pale crystals. "Salt mine," he says, "abandoned long ago." The air here smells strange, sharp, mineral-rich, almost metallic. You look deeper into the ravine and see narrow tunnels carved into the earth, their entrances half collapsed. A few wooden tools lie scattered nearby, warped by time. One still bears a human handprint, pressed into dried mud centuries ago. It's haunting, yet intimate. You can almost imagine the miners down there, working by candlelight, hacking at the shimmering walls. They'd sing to keep rhythm, their voices bouncing off the salt like echoes in a cathedral. Each strike of the pick was both a prayer and a gamble. You step closer, brushing your fingers along the tunnel's edge. The salt is cool and smooth. For a moment, you catch your reflection in the crystalline surface, distorted, pale, and ghostly. You almost look like one of them. Suddenly, the wind shifts, carrying a low, hollow moan through the ravine. It sounds eerily human. Your guide tightens his scod. You lie awake long after the fire dies. The air tastes faintly of salt. You wonder if you'd have done the same, chased that white wealth until the desert took you too. Somewhere, a dune collapses with a soft sigh as if agreeing. You wake to silence so complete it feels alive. The desert has buried the campfire in fine gold dust, leaving only the faintest trace of smoke curling toward the dawn. Your guide is already packing, his movements slow, deliberate. He doesn't speak much anymore. The air itself seems to ask for quiet, as though the dunes are listening. By now, you've been walking for days, tracing the phantom line between history and rumor. The salt mines have faded behind you, and the dunes rise higher, their peaks as sharp as broken waves. Every step takes you deeper into the forgotten. Somewhere in the distance lies Tagaza, the lost city of salt. The name feels heavy now, like a promise you're not sure you want kept. It's almost noon when you see the first sign, a cluster of pale blocks glinting under the sun. At first, you think it's more salt, but then you realize the pattern. Walls half collapsed, stacked neatly like bricks. You walk closer, your sandals crunching on ground that sparkles faintly. This is it. Tagaza, the city built entirely from salt. What remains is eerie and magnificent in equal measure. The air shimmers with heat, and the buildings look like ghosts sculpted from light. Every wall, every corner, every broken arch is carved from solid salt, so white it almost hurts your eyes. You run a finger along one wall, and it flakes under your touch like frozen snow. Careful, your guide murmurs. It melts with breath. You whisper back, though you're not sure why. The place demands reverence. Even the wind has quieted, moving softly through the empty streets like a guest who knows they've arrived too late for the feast. A mainstream historical fact anchors the site. Tagaza, once thriving, was an active salt mining hub in the 14th to 16th centuries. Workers, mostly enslaved men, lived in houses made of salt blocks roofed with camel hides. The salt was cut into slabs weighing up to 90 pounds each, stacked on camels, and carried hundreds of miles to trade for gold, grain, and cloth. Life here was brutal. Water and food had to be imported, and nothing grew. The salt sustained the world but slowly devoured those who mined it. You wander through the ruins, stepping carefully over collapsed walls. In one corner stands what must have been a mosque, a low square outline with a niche carved into the eastern wall. Salt crystals cling to it like frost. You can still see the handprints where builders pressed the blocks together. It's almost beautiful, in a tragic way, like a snow-covered cathedral left behind in a desert that never knew winter. A quirky tidbit bubbles up from the guide as he kneels beside one half-buried doorway. They say Tagaza's miners used to flavor their tea with tiny chips of wall when supplies ran out. "Drink the city," they joked. He glances at you, eyes unreadable. Maybe the city drank them back. You can't help but laugh softly, even though it sends a chill through you. Humor here is like salt, too. Necessary and a little dangerous in excess. Historians still argue whether Tagaza was ever truly alive in the way other cities were. Some describe it as nothing more than a mining outpost, devoid of women, families, or culture. Others insist that its caravans, prayers, and rhythms of labor formed a society all its own. A fragile civilization carved from the bones of the desert. You can almost hear it if you stand still long enough. The echo of picks striking crystal, the low chants of miners, the creak of camel saddles loading slabs by moonlight, the endless rhythm of survival. Your guide sits down beside a crumbling wall, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's strange," he says. "They built everything from salt, houses, mosques, even tombs, but the first rain destroyed it all." You glance up. Not a cloud in sight. Maybe that's why the city chose this place, somewhere rain would never find it. You wander farther, drawn by a low mound at the city's edge. Beneath the shifting sand, you find the faint outline of a courtyard. Scattered across it lie shards of pottery, bits of fabric stiffened by salt, even a rusted knife. Each artifact feels like a whisper. Someone lived here, sweated here, dreamed here. The desert has preserved everything and nothing all at once. You pause by a shallow pit filled with broken slabs. Your guide kneels, brushing away sand until a carving emerges. Simple, geometric, faint. A pair of circles intertwined. The same symbol from the old map. A tremor of recognition runs through you. What does it mean? He squints. I've seen it before. Traders used it to mark alliances. 2 circles, 2 paths crossing. Sometimes it meant brotherhood, sometimes debt, sometimes both. He looks at you, half smiling. And sometimes it just meant, remember us. You stay there until the light fades, watching the salt walls glow gold, then pink, then blue in the dying sun. When night comes, the city shines faintly in the moonlight, as if remembering its old brightness. It's hard not to feel a strange affection for this place. A city made from the simplest substance that once traded with kings and then disappeared without protest. Later, as you make camp just outside the ruins, your guide breaks the silence again. They say when Tagaza fell, No one wept. The miners just left, walked south to the next salt vein, built again and kept cutting, like ants rebuilding after the rain. You ask him what caused the fall, though you already know the possible answers. He shrugs. War, drought, greed, take your pick. Historians still argue about that too. Some say Moroccan soldiers destroyed it when newer mines were discovered. Others claim it was abandoned after a series of raids made life impossible. And then there's the quiet theory, that the miners simply ran out of will and walked away. The fire pops, sending sparks into the night. You take a pinch of salt from your pouch, watching it glisten in the firelight. Do you think they knew, you ask softly, that it wouldn't last? Your guide smiles faintly. Of course, that's why they built it from salt. Nothing built from salt is meant to last, only to shine for a while. The dunes shift outside your camp, whispering secrets you'll never quite catch. By the next morning, the sun feels sharper, closer somehow, as though it's inspecting your every thought. The ruins of Tagaza shimmer behind you, a mirage folding back into the sand. You half expect that when you look again, it'll be gone completely, as if it never existed at all. Your guide walks ahead in silence, his scarf drawn tight against the wind. The dunes are restless today, tossing up little storms that sting your face and coat your tongue with salt. You taste the city still lingering on your lips. For the first time, the desert feels almost empty. Not in the peaceful way it sometimes does, but hollow, like something's missing. Maybe it's the noise, the absence of the miner's rhythm, of the hum of labor and trade. All that's left is wind and rumor. You've seen the rise and fall of Tagaza with your own eyes. But back in the wider world, far from these dunes, its story took on a life of its own. After its fall, Tagaza didn't disappear from maps. It multiplied. European explorers, hungry for gold and desperate to chart the mysteries of Africa, began sketching wild versions of the city. The further they were from the desert, the grander it became. On parchment, Tagaza turned from a crumbling mining outpost into a glittering metropolis of gold-roofed palaces, flowing fountains, and towers that sparkled under the Saharan sun. A mainstream historical fact captures that fever perfectly. During the 16th and 17th centuries, European mapmakers, men like Abraham Ortelius and Gerardus Mercator, plotted Tagaza on their world maps with wild precision, even though none of them had ever seen it. To them, it was both a landmark and a legend, proof that the heart of Africa hid unimaginable wealth. You imagine the cartographers hunched over their tables, quills scratching, salt crumbs clinging to their cuffs. Maybe someone had told them about the city of salt and gold, and they simply couldn't resist exaggerating. After all, who could believe a city made of salt wasn't magical? Your guide laughs quietly when you tell him this. They drew it because they were lost, he says. When you don't know where you are, it helps to imagine that somewhere out there is something perfect. He's not wrong. You think of how many explorers died chasing mirages, how the promise of Tagaza's wealth drove men across thousands of miles of unbroken sand. Some vanished without a trace. Others returned with tales that only deepened the myth. A quirky tidbit from one of those tales floats through your memory. A Portuguese trader once claimed he'd seen Tagaza's salt palaces glowing under moonlight so bright they could be seen from the sea. He swore the inhabitants were men of white skin and golden eyes. Later, historians decided he'd probably just stared too long at the reflection of the moon on salt crystals. Historians still argue whether these myths were deliberate lies or hopeful confusion. Some say European explorers genuinely believed in cities of gold hidden in the African interior. Others think the stories were a way to just do that. You walk through the dunes thinking about that, the way stories can outlive truth. The real Tagaza melted under time and heat, but the imaginary one still shone brightly on maps for centuries. At one rest stop, your guide spreads out the old parchment map you've been carrying. It's fragile now, frayed at the edges. The twin circle symbol still marks the hidden city. Only now, as you stare at it, you realize something new. Faintly, under the ink, are more lines, maybe drawn later, dotted trails, loops, notes in another hand. Someone else tried to find what you're looking for. You trace the faint writing with your finger. Lost, but not forgotten. Your guide frowns. Those words again. You fold the map carefully. Maybe the people who left Tagaza wanted to be remembered. He shakes his head. Or maybe they wanted to be left alone. You keep walking. The dunes ahead look different now, flatter, streaked with darker sand. In the distance, you can see what looks like black stone peeking through the surface. At first, you think it's volcanic rock, but as you get closer, you see the edges carved, shaped. Another ruin. You approach cautiously. It's smaller than Tagaza, more compact, but its walls are darker, built from mud brick and reinforced with salt. The wind whistles through empty windows. Your guide kneels, brushing away sand until the twin circle symbol appears again, etched into a doorway. You both stare at it, unsure what to feel. Another city? You ask. He shrugs. Or another story pretending to be one. Inside, the air is cooler. The rooms are small, simple. You find broken bowls, a cracked prayer tablet, the remains of a cooking pot. Nothing golden, nothing miraculous, just traces of people who once tried to live here. On one wall, scratched faintly into the salt, are words in Arabic. You can make out only part of it. We carried the sun on our backs, and it burned us to light. It feels like a farewell. You stand there for a long while, letting the silence fill in the rest. The desert hums softly outside. When you finally leave, you take one last look at the dark ruin. You realize it's not on any of the maps, European or otherwise. Maybe that's the point. Some stories never wanted to be found. As you and your guide set camp nearby, the stars rise one by one, scattered across the sky like grains of salt. You can't help but smile at the thought, even the heavens look a little like Tagaza tonight. Bright, crystalline, and full of legends no one can quite prove. The wind picks up, brushing sand over your footprints, erasing your path behind you. It's as if the desert itself is redrawing the map. And maybe that's how it should be. By the time morning light spills over the dunes, the dark ruins are gone. Not destroyed, just swallowed. The desert does that. One night it holds history in its arms. The next, it tucks it away like a secret it's tired of keeping. You stare at the shifting sand where the walls once stood. The air still tastes faintly of salt, and you can almost hear the faint whisper of the Arabic inscription you saw etched in the wall. We carried the sun on our backs, and it burned us to light. The phrase echoes in your head as you pack up. The dunes roll endlessly ahead, smooth as silk. Each ridge looks the same as the last, yet your guide insists you're following an ancient path. He walks barefoot now, saying he can feel the buried roads through the soles of his feet. You try to imitate him and last about 6 seconds before the sand scalds your skin. He grins. The desert has to like you first. Hours pass. The horizon never moves. The sky and sand blur together in a dance of pale gold. You start to wonder if maybe this twin city you're searching for is just another story, another mapmaker's daydream. But by late afternoon, something strange happens. The wind shifts. The dunes ripple and settle, revealing something hard and uneven beneath the surface, black stone shaped by human hands. You and your guide clear the sand with your arms until a pattern emerges. It's not a building this time, it's a floor. A mosaic of dark and white tiles, arranged in the same twin circle pattern. The design spreads wider than you can see, vanishing into the dunes. The discovery sends a jolt through you. This wasn't Tagaza, you whisper. This was something else. The guide nods slowly. Tagaza's echo, maybe. The one your map spoke of. You kneel, brushing the sand from one of the tiles. It's smooth, cool to the touch, and carved with faint lines. Symbols, names, maybe prayers. The edges are worn, but the craft is meticulous. Whoever built this wasn't improvising in the middle of nowhere. They meant it to last. A mainstream historical fact surfaces in your mind. Archaeologists have long suspected that other salt-based settlements existed along the trade routes, smaller temporary waypoints that mirrored Tagaza's design. But few have been found intact. The desert erases too quickly. Some researchers believe entire outposts now lie buried beneath shifting dunes, still waiting to be uncovered. And here you are, kneeling on one. You take a deep breath, trying to steady the thrill buzzing under your ribs. The desert suddenly feels full of ghosts. Miners, traders, imams, cooks, and children who once walked these very tiles. You can almost hear their sandals scuffing, their laughter tangled in the wind. A quirky tidbit slips from your guide as he traces the twin circles with his finger. Some Tuaregs say the pattern isn't just for trade, it's a charm against vanishing. 2 circles, one for the body, one for the soul. So when the desert takes one, the other stays to remember. You can't help but smile. So, a spiritual backup plan? He grins back. Exactly. You both laugh softly, though it feels like the kind of laughter people use to keep from crying. Historians still argue whether any of these rumored twin cities actually existed, or whether they're poetic inventions, symbols of endurance told by caravans to comfort themselves. Some scholars even suggest that Tagaza itself may have been exaggerated, that what we imagine as a grand salt city might have been little more than scattered huts and exhausted miners. But here, kneeling among carved stone and buried patterns, it's hard not to believe there's more truth buried under the sand than on any map. You spend the rest of the day exploring the perimeter, marking what you can before the light fades. You find what might have been a well, now filled with salt crust. There are fragments of pottery, half a camel harness, and one curious object. A round crystal sphere about the size of your fist, smooth as glass. Inside, a faint shimmer catches the sun. You hold it up. What do you think this is? Your guide squints. Maybe a trader's weight, or maybe something left to trick us into believing. You laugh quietly. Which do you think it is? He pauses. Both. That night, you camp beside the uncovered mosaic. The stars seem unusually close, glittering like reflections of the salt crystals buried beneath you. You lie awake, tracing the circles in your mind, wondering if they're still glowing down there in the dark. Somewhere between waking and sleep, you hear something faint, rhythmic. Not the wind this time. It's lower, steadier, almost like footsteps. You sit up, but the desert looks empty. Your guide stirs beside you. What? I heard something, you whisper. He listens for a moment, then shrugs. Probably the dunes shifting. Or maybe... He smiles faintly, eyes half closed. The miners still walking home. The thought sends a chill through you, not fear exactly, but awe. Because maybe that's the real story. The people who built cities of salt knew they'd vanish. They didn't build for forever. They built to be remembered, even if only by the next traveler who happens to brush the sand aside. You lie back down, the sound fading into the hum of the wind. The desert seems to breathe with you, slow and deep. The moon rises, washing everything silver. The twin circles gleam faintly in the dunes, like eyes watching over the ruins of memory. And you think, maybe for the first time, that the lost African city isn't lost at all. It's just dreaming, waiting for someone to remember its name. You wake before dawn, the air cool and thin, the stars still clinging to the sky like scattered grains of salt. The desert around you is still, impossibly still, as if the world itself is holding its breath. The mosaic beneath your feet glows faintly in the blue light, its twin circle pattern half buried once again, already being reclaimed by the dunes. Your guide is kneeling nearby, facing east, whispering a morning prayer. The sound carries softly across the sand, threads of syllables weaving through the hush. You don't understand the words, but you feel their weight. Gratitude, endurance, surrender. When he finishes, he looks at you with a faint smile. You wanted to find the city, he says. Now you've found it. What will you take back? You glance at the salt crystal sphere resting in your hands, catching the dawn light. For a moment, it glows gold, the color of morning, of memory, of everything the desert ever promised. Maybe nothing, you say. Maybe just the story. He nods. That's the only thing the desert can't bury. You spend the morning tracing the edges of the ruin, marking the location carefully, though you know how useless that really is. One good sandstorm and it'll all be gone again. But still, you map it anyway, Humans have always fought against forgetting, even when the universe insists on erasing. As you pack to leave, you look back one last time. The dunes are already swallowing the sight, as if tucking it back into sleep. You whisper a small thank you, though you're not sure to whom. The journey back feels different. The air tastes sharper, more alive. The desert no longer feels empty. It feels full of stories, of ghosts, of echoes that hum just below the threshold of hearing. You think of all the caravans that once crossed these sands, the salt slabs stacked like treasure, the songs that guided men through darkness. A mainstream historical fact surfaces quietly in your mind. The trans-Saharan trade continued in smaller forms well into the 19th century. The caravans still moved between Taoudeni, Timbuktu, and Gao, though their glory days had faded. Even now, in parts of Mali, Mauritania, and Niger, men still mine salt by hand, loading camels and walking for weeks across the same dunes you've crossed. The trade never truly ended. It just slowed, like a great heartbeat fading into rest. A quirky tidbit from one of your guide's stories makes you chuckle. You know, he says, some of the salt miners today still name their camels after famous kings. There's one called Askia the Great, another named Gold Tooth. They say the camels walk straighter that way. You grin. And do they? He shrugs. Straighter than the kings, maybe? You both laugh, and the sound feels good, small and human against the endless sky. Historians still argue whether the legends of Tagaza and its twin cities are exaggerated, or if the ruins you found were something else entirely. Some say they're mere salt outposts. Others insist they were part of a vast network of sacred trade towns, each one a heartbeat in the desert's long rhythm. But standing here, feeling the sand shift beneath your boots, it's hard not to believe the stories carry a truth deeper than fact. The sun climbs higher, painting the dunes gold. You stop for one last look at the horizon. The same endless shimmering line that has lured travelers for 1,000 years. Somewhere beyond it, the ghost of Tagaza gleams quietly beneath the sand. Do you think it'll ever be found again? You ask. Your guide smiles, adjusting his scarf. It's not lost, it's right where it should be. The desert just keeps it safe from people like us. You laugh softly. Then maybe that's enough. He nods. Enough to remember. Enough to tell. And that's what you carry home. Not salt, not gold, but the shimmer of memory itself. The sound of a pick striking crystal. The hush of wind through hollow walls. The twin circles still glowing faintly in your mind's eye, reminding you that nothing ever truly disappears. It just waits. You close your eyes and can almost hear the city breathing beneath the dunes. A long, slow sigh, like someone sleeping beneath the earth. The desert hums again, the same low song that's followed you since the beginning. It's the sound of time itself, eroding, preserving, whispering. You realize then that maybe the lost city was never a place at all. Maybe it was an idea, a reflection of human endurance carved into salt and sand. You exhale, and for a heartbeat, the wind seems to echo it back. Soft, approving, infinite. The journey home stretches out in your memory, slower now, softer around the edges. The heat fades, replaced by the hush of evening air and the weightless quiet that always follows discovery. You can still feel the grit of salt on your fingertips, the shimmer of dunes under your eyelids when you close them. You think about everything the desert taught you, that nothing lasts forever, and that's okay. That even when walls melt, stories linger. That sometimes the smallest, simplest things, like salt, carry entire civilizations in their crystals. You picture Tagaza again, glowing under moonlight, its salt walls standing proud against the endless dark. You picture the twin circles carved into stone, waiting patiently for someone, anyone, to remember. And in that stillness, you realize the city isn't gone. It's just quiet, like an old song hummed under the breath of time. The wind outside your window hums faintly, steady as the desert's sigh. The room around you feels warm, safe, smaller now in a comforting way. You let your breathing slow, matching the rhythm of that faraway silence. The salt is still out there somewhere, gleaming under starlight, keeping its secrets. And maybe, in some strange way, it's keeping yours too. So you let go of the road, of the dunes, of the map in your hands. You let yourself drift, the sand shifting beneath you, soft and endless. Somewhere far away, the lost city sleeps, content, unbothered, waiting for the next dreamer to find it. Sweet dreams,